Should have pre-approved my remote day due sickness. OK, by user OK_performance_342. This happened in my old job, and I was reminded it today. Thought it would fit here. In my old job we had a great boss, and hybrid work. If we had any reason not to come to the office, just a message to him and extra remote day would be approved. Then he was let go, and we got a new boss, who was exact opposite of her predecessor. This happened a few weeks after our old boss was let go and his boss became our new boss. One morning I wasn't feeling well, too sick to travel to the office but not too sick to work from home. I had couple of remote meetings with customers, so it was just easier to me to work while being a little sick than try to reschedule. I spoke with my boss in Slack, and our conversation was like this. Me, good morning. I have a sore throat and a slight fever, I'll be working from home today, so no need to reschedule anything. Boss, our employer handbook clearly states that remote days are Tuesday and Thursday and exceptions need a pre-approved by the manager. I was pissed. Is she really trying to force me to the office even I'm sick? Or what was her motive? But then it hit me, it doesn't matter, and our discussion continued. Me, oh, sorry, that's true. Me, I have a sore throat and a slight fever. I'm unable to come to the office so I'm taking a sick day. Could you ask someone to reschedule the meetings with customer A and customer B, since I'm recovering at home at least for today? Me, the employer handbook states that I can take 3 sick days in a row without a doctor's note. But I'm willing to make an exception if you want to, and get you one. Do you want it? I was left on red for 10 minutes. She started typing, deleted the text, started again and deleted it again. She was active in our chat for entire 10 minutes until I finally got a response. Boss, no, that won't be necessary. I'll ask someone to reschedule those meetings. Get well soon. My colleagues almost died on laughter when I told them why I'm having a sick day and not just work from home. Our boss didn't like me after that, but the feeling was mutual. I left the company later for a new job, but not before she was fired. Edit, formatting. Edit 2, thank you so much for upvotes. Several people are asking for why she was fired. I wrote it in one comment, but I'll write a longer version here. She was commercial director. Last year before she joined the company, it made 606,000 euros profit. In her first year, 413,000 euros, second year 1,000 euros and she was fired at the end of the third. Numbers aren't public yet, but they are similar to the last year, if they somehow managed to stay profitable at all. She had previous experience from companies over 20 times bigger than that, and she was hired to help the company grow to the next level. Unfortunately her skills were just to implement heavy processes and stiff organizational model. Her commercial department had 7 people working under her, and there was 4 sub-departments, sales, productization, account management, and marketing. 4 in sales, 2 in productization, 1 in account management and marketing was handled by an outside contractor. We had 26 employees in total. We in sales were completely in new business, and after we had a signed agreement, account management took the contact role. Our former boss was head of sales, and he suggested that salesperson could be the contact for the first year, or even handle possible upselling, selling more to the current customer, but the commercial director didn't even let him finish before said no. So the company lost a lot of money when not doing the upsell. It's pretty common that companies start with a small deal with a new software, and expand the use step by step. For some reason this wasn't an option if the customer didn't specifically ask us to provide more licenses. She was there before I was, but during my time she focused on standardizing the sales process, which led to us losing the sales and bringing in less money. For example, we couldn't modify text in proposals for the customers without asking a permission from productization, and even after that only marketing would be allowed to make changes. And this was even in situations where the customer didn't want some feature our product had, we couldn't even remove the text about it. I once counted that my proposal introduced 11 features, and 9 of them were completely irrelevant to the customer, 2 of them were something that the customer had explicitly stated that they didn't want those. This was a software so it had some features customers didn't use, but they didn't affect the pricing, so it didn't matter. It led to situations where we heard from the customers that we focused in completely unrelated things, not those which were relevant to the customer, and their board chose another vendor, even if the internal champion believed we were much better. Which we said would happen before this new model was implemented. Some other standardizations lead to the situations where owners asked something for us to do something, and we had to decline since we weren't allowed to do that. They respected her role, even when they didn't agree with her decisions. But it's hard to believe that it didn't affect her termination. She costed about 2 million euros to the company, and that doesn't even include her salary. And for the top of that, she turned the company culture to something the owners didn't like. So she was expensive, difficult person and hard to work with. Level that entire field? You got it, Lieutenant, by user silent_layer 3370. Story from my grandfather's time in the RAF. He was a heavy mechanic/transport officer. Worked around a lot of heavy machinery and did maintenance on runways. He was assigned to a base on a Pacific island somewhere and he was working on a bulldozer in one of their maintenance sheds. An uppity just out of Dentroon lieutenant walked up to him and demanded that he level a field with the bulldozer as they were preparing for an exercise. He told him to level that field and level every goddamn thing on that field. My grandfather replied that he wasn't trained in the use of the bulldozer, he was just repairing a part on it. The lieutenant snapped back and said, "A commanding officer just gave you an order, now get in that bulldozer and level that field." Pop though, fuck it, what's the worst that could happen, and he jumped up in that dozer and started leveling the field. Here's where it got malicious. In the area of the field there was a brand new jail that had been constructed. It was a temporary wooden building for use while the Air Force waited for supplies to build a more sturdy concrete building. The construction had only been recently completed and nothing had been moved into the building yet. Anyway, during his journey to flatten the field for the lieutenant's exercise, my pop accidentally clipped the wall of the jail and caused it to begin collapsing. At this point, he knew he was fucked. He was going to be in trouble no matter what he did. So he thought, well fuck it, the lieutenant told me to flatten the field and every goddamn thing on the field. Pop just ended up bulldozing the entire jail and flattening it out along with the rest of the field. He ended up being court-martialed for destroying RAF property. He represented himself and only asked that he question the lieutenant that asked him to do the work on the field. "Lieutenant, did you ask me to level the field with a bulldozer?" "Yes, but I didn't tell you to level the jail as well." "But you did instruct me to use the bulldozer to level the field." "Yes, I did." "Lieutenant, did I warn you that I wasn't instructed on the use of the bulldozer?" "Yes, Bulletin." "Lieutenant, did you tell me to level everything on that field?" "Yes, Bulletin." "Lieutenant, is the jailhouse on the field that you instructed me, someone not trained in the use of a bulldozer to level?" "Yes, Corporal, the jailhouse is on that field." The only trouble my pop got into with this one was the adjudicator of the case told my pop to listen far more carefully to the orders of a superior officer. Charges need to be pressed and compensated paid, by user knowledge from work. I was reminded of this story after the recent passing of a former work colleague Jean. Jean was a keen cyclist in her 60s who used to cycle during her lunch hour. One lunch hour while cycling down the main street of our town, a car door opened and Jean struck the door. She fell onto the ground, sustaining minor injuries. The driver leaped from the car and started abusing Jean for minor damage to her car door. Jean tried to apologize, but the driver just abused her, demanding that the police be called and compensation be paid. A passerby helped Jean up. Jean tried to reason with the woman, but she demanded the police be called. The police arrived shortly after and heard the stories from both sides and the witnesses. The driver demanded charges be laid and the police officer agreed, charging the driver with a range of offences. The driver got a hefty fine and license suspended. Jean's brother was a solicitor who sent a letter demanding just what the driver wanted: compensation. It wasn't much, maybe a couple of $1,000s. The driver promptly paid. Out malicious complaints an engineer, by use_nombra_da_usuario. I work in the engineering department for a government contractor. While I myself am not an engineer, I work closely with them and am very familiar with their love of sarcasm and malicious compliance. This story takes place earlier this morning. I had to submit something that I'm working on to the electrical engineers for their input on it. Many things in this job are very particular on wording, so to make sure that it was going to be processed, I asked the power engineer work leader if the form had to be titled in a particular way. His response was that I could literally write anything in there and it would be accepted. Crucial background information is that the official ASME abbreviation guidelines for the word analysis is anal. Next thing he knows, he's getting the email from me with the power analysis request saying, "Hi name, can you give other engineer this power anal for me?" He regretted telling me that I could write anything in the title line, but he did Skype me afterwards and said that he almost fell out of his chair laughing at the title. Minor malicious compliance that felt really satisfying, by user sweet_secretary 2221. I, 17F, am a very outgoing person. I'm super extroverted and jolly around others. Whenever I meet someone, I'll greet them with a big hug and a smile on my face. To be honest, most people are really happy when I hug them, and that makes me want to do it even more if that makes sense. A few weeks ago, a friend of mine, let's call her Tam, saw me hug a mutual friend. She immediately said you greet people as if they're your long-lost lovers. God! That is so cringe. I've been told it's cringe in the past, but the long-lost lovers thing was new, so I decided to do a little bit of mischief. When I showed up to class next day, I hugged every one of my friends except Tam. When I'd hugged everyone, I walked over to Tam and I just shook her hand real slow, making eye contact the whole time. The awkwardness was palpable. This was 3 weeks ago, and now Tam nearly begs me to hug her because the handshake is somehow awkward? I just say nah, you said it was cringe. I don't know whether it counts as malicious compliance, but goddamn I love the look on her face when I shake her hand. Edit, no, I don't go around hugging strangers. I don't hug people that have told me they don't like physical contact. No, I don't hug random men. My academy is an all-girls one, so no strange guys whatsoever.